President Trump came to Washington with a mandate from his supporters. That was to drain the swamp. Now, more than a year into his presidency, with scandals swirling around his cabinet, things are looking pretty swampy. Joining me now to discuss, CNN political commentator Van Jones in the House, a former Obama administration official and host of CNN's The Van Jones Show, and CNN political commentator Anna Navarro, a Republican strategist, and CNN political commentator Scott Jennings, a former special assistant to President George W. Bush. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. Good to see you. Anna, you're up first. What's your reaction to all of this Pruitt news tonight?
One more episode of, as the Trump world turns. One more episode of the telenovela. One more episode where we see the inconsistency and hypocrisy of this Trump administration. He came in promising transparency, promising to change the status quo, promising to drain the swamp. And what we have seen is that he has just brought an entirely new species of swamp things into D.C. A lot of them are rich. We thought, you know what? He's appointing all these rich people to the cabinet, people like, Steve Mnuchin, Steve Munchkin, whatever his name is, and they're not going to have to be corrupt. Turns out they're just as corrupt, but his base doesn't seem to care, and I think the rest of us are just watching this, eating popcorn and drinking soda, wondering, what is going to be the next shoe to drop?
Well, the interesting thing is that, every day I come in, I'm not surprised anymore. It's like, well, here it is. But I'm just sort of surprised, Scott, that, small government conservatives, fiscal conservatives aren't really saying anything about this, especially when you're considering how much money, Scott Pruitt seems to be spending or wasting, however you want to put it. And then sources telling CNN that the president considered replacing Sessions with the embattled EPA administrator as recently as last week. Does this seem like the Attorney General's position is always in jeopardy here?
Well, a couple things. Number one, I think Scott Pruitt is under attack largely because he's been the most effective member of Donald Trump's cabinet. They've not gotten a lot of things done in a lot of cabinets, but at the EPA, Scott Pruitt took the mandate seriously, and he has systematically dismantled the Obama regulatory regime. That's why I think he is under attack right now. The reason he is up for a possible appointment to Attorney General.
Who's attacking him?
I think he's under attack from all quarters. He's under attack from disgruntled employees. He's under attack from the left in Washington, D.C. He's under attack from, a lot of people right now because he's been effective. I think this has nothing to do with anything but his flat effectiveness.
That's really, first of all, I don't think he's under attack. I think he's doing things that are despicable, and that should be your position. I mean, I'm shocked to hear you as a Republican not starting out with saying, this is not what our party stands for. The corruption, taking money, taking advantage, wanting special privilege. That should be the opposite of a conservative point of view. For you to come out and say that there's something bad happening to him, do you think you should have $2 million to drive around and go to Disneyland? I mean, what kind of a nanny state are you in favor of now because you got the Trump administration up there in Washington, D.C.?
Look, I think that Scott Pruitt had some judgment issues on a few things. I also think some of the things he's been accused of are not true, but they're being regurgitated as though they are. He didn't buy expensive desks. There was a proposal, and they didn't come to pass. They didn't have a charter jet service. There was a proposal, and it didn't come to pass. And if you look at his travel patterns, they're really no different than EPA administrators in the Obama administration. So he's basically operating on travel the exact same way his predecessors did.
I think worked for the Obama administration.
Has everything to do with effectiveness.
Well, I hope Lisa Jackson is not listening to this. I hope she is someplace doing something because her head just blew off her shoulders if you said that she was spending millions of dollars to go to Disneyland. That is just not true. And this is part of the problem. I understand the level of defensiveness. We all want to defend people on our own side. But I think we are hurting the country when we will defend anybody doing anything. Listen, I agree with you. Scott Pruitt has been very effective at hurting America's environment. He has done everything he can to increase the amount of poison and pollution in our country, and for that, you might want to applaud him. But that does not give him a free pass to take advantage of the country's purse strings. And I'm shocked that you don't have Republicans. The first thing you guys would have said is, you don't do stuff like that, and then you pivot. You don't even make the pivot. You go straight ahead and say, this guy is only under attack because he's being effective. And you know that's not true.
Anna, I want you to
listen,
get
one of the problems is that this is not happening in a vacuum. This is one more chapter in this novella, in the sense that we've heard about excesses by Ben Carson, by Munchkin, by Mnuchin, what's his name, Mnuchin, by, Zinke at Department of Interior, whether it's $140,000 doors or $30,000 lunch tables, or whether it's jetting around to go see an eclipse. This is just one more instance of what we are seeing after Donald Trump promised to be different. And the Republican Party again and again looks the other way, whether it's Stormy Daniels or tariffs or deficits or overspending. They look the other way. If this were a Democratic administration, people would be brought in to testify, and there would be investigations, and there would be much more scrutiny. The Republican Congress continues to give this administration a pass, even though they are behaving as anything but traditional Republicans.
I want to move on, but Scott, I think you should have a chance to respond to this.
Yeah, let me just tell you about the politics of Scott Pruitt within the Republican Party. If you talk to any Republican, small business person, farmer, anybody in the sort of the conservative pro-business wing of the Republican Party in middle America, and you say, what's the one thing about the Obama administration that you hated the most? Almost universally, they will tell you it was the EPA crushing businesses, jobs, and farmers, and they see Scott Pruitt as their champion who has come in and reversed these bad decisions. That's why I think you're going to see and have seen the conservatives rally to his cause tonight.
Scott, did you see the interview that he gave Ed Henry?
Yeah, it was terrible. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Scott Pruitt's the best in the world at giving interviews. I'm just explaining to you the politics of this.
Right, to me, that interview he gave Ed Henry, and by the way, I give Ed Henry kudos.
And set up better processes.
I give Ed Henry kudos for holding his feet to the fire. And I will say to you, the problem with that interview is, first of all, it was so bad, he made Betsy DeVos look like Albert Einstein. But more than that, he went around the White House to give his buddies and cronies a huge pay raise, despite the White House saying for him not to do it. That should really bother us as Republicans, as Americans, as taxpayers. That is our money that he is misspending, and it should bother all of us despite partisanship.
And I just want to say this myth that the Obama administration was crushing small businesses, killing. We had a sustained growth. We came out of the Great Recession with sustained growth that President Trump thankfully has continued, though at a slower rate. And it's just mythology that he was. We were able, and especially places like California, to have clean air and a growing economy and add jobs. There's a way forward that doesn't require poisoning America's children in the name of economic development.
That's got to be the last word. And with that, I'll say thank you, and I'll say don't miss the Van Jones Show this Saturday night with Van's special guest, former Vice President. Speaking of that clean air, Al Gore, right? And then you've also got Ryan Coogler. That's going to be interesting. Director of a global mega hit movie, Black Panther. That's the Van Jones Show, Saturday night at 7 Eastern. And when we come back, the president breaking his silence about his alleged affair with Stormy Daniels, and Daniels' lawyer is claiming victory over what he said. Did President Trump just put himself in legal jeopardy?